I am here. Just give me a second. Alrighty. Hello. I am J.R. Niles. I am the author of the novel Internet Dating. If you have made it this far to session 5 of my reading party, I hope it is enough that you will go out and buy my book, which will be available next month in December, just in time for Christmas. I will give you that information at the end of this reading session. I have been getting comments about my stuffed animal cat. Comments, curiosity, what have you. I appreciate it all. It was strategically placed. Okay, let's get right into it. Part 2 of Chapter 2. Lance and Melanie arrive in New York City later the same morning, much later than they originally planned. It was his fault their departure for this road trip was 6 hours late. It was also his fault they somehow missed the 80-90 entrance ramp back in Chicago. Another hour-and-a-half delay. It was only fitting that Lance refrained from getting angry when they found out their hotel room was now occupied by another party. He had paid for the room in advance online, but their arrival time was 3 hours before the checkout time of noon. Melanie is furious. "This is some bullshit," she exclaims. "They're just gonna take your money and that's it? We gotta do something about that. They just can't get away with that. Where are we gonna stay and rest our heads now?" "I don't know," Lance answers. "I do have these maps of the city and of the state, so we should be able to find something." They drive around for a couple of hours in the immediate vicinity, but all of the hotels in the city are priced on the high end. They eventually find themselves in the Queens area where the hotels are lower in price. Even there, though, they experience difficulty in finding a vacancy, or finding themselves for that matter. The New York City maps that they constantly refer to don't help when they get lost again. "See, Melanie, I told you that street was back over on this side and not where you told me to go." "Well, we wouldn't be going through this mess if you could have been ready to leave yesterday morning and at the time you said we were leaving, instead of out drinking with your homie the night before." "I made a nice breakfast for us yesterday. What are you talking about?" Now they are both angry as they go back and forth with sarcastic comments about who is right and who is wrong. The tension in the air with the constant driving around for endless hours is fatal. Lance's thoughts take him to how many times he has heard Melanie use a curse word today. Generally, he goes with the flow of the woman he's with in determining the method in which he speaks. A little cursing in general conversation is not so bad for Lance. It's the angry cursing towards him that he doesn't like. Sherry didn't casually use one curse word in the few instances they made contact on the phone or in person about anything. When they finally do find a room, Lance tries to calm himself down, but for Melanie it is already too late. He had blamed her for being lost before, and in Melanie's mind, she can do no wrong when it comes to Lance. She gives him the silent treatment as they enter the room. Lance tries to pleasantly approach her about anything from this point on, but he can feel the resentment in the air. While he knows it's only momentary, he hopes it will have dissipated in time for the play tonight. Lance is glad when she falls asleep so he can go outside and relax while he's smoking a cigarette. Melanie knows about his smoking, but he doesn't do it around her. He walks across the street and sits on an elevated grassy area. He watches the airplanes as they pass closely overhead, preparing to land at the LaGuardia airport nearby. His feeling of discouragement makes it easy to start thinking about Sherry again. He had sent her one more text message about 4 days after they had gone out, 2 months before. She didn't answer that form of communication either. His phone calling power had been taken away because of that. But on this day, Lance decides to take that power back. He snatches his cell phone from the holster and dials her number. With each ring, he grows slightly more nervous, not knowing exactly what to say to her if she answers. "Hi, you've reached Sherry. I can't come to the phone right now, but if you leave a message, I will get back to you as soon as I can." Lance had forgotten how cute her voice was, and it was nice for him to hear it again. But he was relieved that it was only her voicemail greeting. The beep sounds. Hi, Sherry. This is Lance. We met a couple of months ago at the mall in Skokie. Every once in a while in life we come across someone that really stands out from all the rest. Despite how our meeting went back then, I never forgot about you. And I would really like for us to be friends. Think about that, Sherry. Bye. He has to listen to at least 3 prompts from her voicemail in order for his message to officially go through. Irritating. But he responds to each and every one of them to make sure she will hear his very important message. For the first time out loud, he had admitted what he already knew. The chemistry was lacking when they met. Lance puts his phone away feeling confident, knowing that 1, he has done all he can do regarding this situation, and 2, the part about wanting to be friends is not a lie because that's what he truly feels in his heart. He starts to silently celebrate the fact that he even made the call because in most cases he wouldn't have bothered. One thing that Lance has known for quite some time is that opportunity doesn't always come a-knocking. Sometimes you gotta go out and just get it. Knowing this and actually doing something about it, as he's aware, are 2 different animals. With that in mind, he decides to do something about Melanie's mood instead of waiting for it to change on its own. Lance scurries back across the street to the hotel where Melanie still lays sound asleep. He stands at the foot of the bed just for a moment and watches her, lying on her stomach, motionless, with her face buried in her crossed arms. He stoops down and lightly touches the side of her face. As she starts to stir, he whispers in her ear, "We better start getting ready." "How long have I been asleep?" "About an hour." Lance gently lies beside her, placing his left arm across her back and bending it so the longest finger on his hand can touch the back of her head. He kisses her lightly on the right side of her neck. Then he licks her in the same spot with the tip of his tongue, working his way up to her earlobe. Then he kisses her again in the same spot. Melanie opens her eyes and looks at Lance. The look is like the glass is half empty or half full, depending on which way one would look at it. Lance gestures her to turn over on her back anyway, which she does. He proceeds to undress her the way he wanted to in the car earlier that morning. He makes love to her again, but this time she does not receive it as enthusiastically as earlier. But she does receive it nonetheless. Only his climax is reached this time around. While the force of it is usually the same, the mental aspect of it is hardly as fascinating. They both fall asleep and finally, 45 minutes later, they get up to get ready for the play. The theater where the play was held was a typical enough establishment for Lance. It is Times Square that truly grabs his attention. His comparison to it is that of the near North Side in Chicago on Rush Street back in the day. Here, though, everything is amplified 10 times. More people, more lights, more litter on the ground, and the advertisement agenda is simply ridiculous. The lighting on some of the billboards is so excessive that you can look at a building on one side of the street and see the reflection of an ad from across the street through the windows. They walk past one famous New York City establishment after the other. Lance looks at the vast amount of people walking down the street. Some look normal, some appear to be dazed and confused, maybe high. Some look like gangsters, some are. Almost any choice of ethnic group is down here, and even a guy is dressed in a superhero costume from head to toe. They all share in this late night Saturday furor. For Lance, the most arousing aspect of it all is the fact that they are in another state and he brought them here. He has been to New York before as a child. Melanie takes it all in a little differently. She does appreciate all the preparation and planning that Lance did for her birthday, but she has been on many road trips before, mostly with her family. So the aspect of merely being out of town is not a big deal for her. The most invigorating thing for her regarding this trip was the play. As they continue to stroll along, they stop and each take a picture of the other in front of a well-known television station. Then some lady offers to take a picture of them together. The stranger takes the photo, and they both thank her for being so nice. In a few days, when Lance gets the pictures developed, he will scoff when he sees that Melanie is almost cut out of the picture to the left. Let's walk over to the Empire State Building before we go. Okay, Lance, that's a good idea. When they see the towering structure, they wish they could go inside to the top, even though they reside where many fancy the Sears Tower. They take a rain check on that though, because now it is 2 in the morning and it's time for them to head back home to Illinois. They head back to the car, fight their way through to the Lincoln Tunnel entrance, and bye-bye to the grand New York City. As they drive west through New Jersey, Lance tries to clean the windshield with the windshield wipers to no avail. He realizes that this failed attempt is the result of extensive hours on the highway. He will have to clean it later by hand. He stops at a gift shop to purchase a coffee mug that says New Jersey on it. He does the same in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana. Lost my spot. Okay. He does the same in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana to have his keepsakes. Melanie gave him the idea when she bought him a coffee mug in New York. This kind of thing is sentimental to Lance, not to mention the fact that he is somewhat of a pack rat. Their drive coming back, even with a 1-hour rest period, is a lot shorter and more to the target time of 13 hours than the drive was coming. They both know exactly where they're going now. As Melanie approaches the last toll road in Indiana, Lance sits up from his reclined passenger seat to reach for some CDs. Suddenly, she slams on the brakes to avoid someone cutting her off to get in line. Lance's upper body and neck jerk forward uncontrollably. He gives her a smutty look as if to question her driving skills, but he doesn't say anything. What he thinks is a pretty normal reaction to an unexpected, impetuous moment turns out to be the deal breaker for their trip ending in bliss. Melanie is angry at Lance again. Now Lance extends very far into his thoughts to try and figure out what he did wrong. He also wonders if he's even guilty of any wrongdoing at all. Lance has always been known to be a bit of a nitpicker, a whiny perfectionist, so to speak. He has an argumentative way about himself as well. These are some of the negative traits that he has been reading about lately in his newfound hobby of self-help books. These are some of the negative traits he has been trying to change about himself. He figured that not saying anything was a showing of his improved attitude. However, Melanie took the mean look as condescending. This time around, Lance is not inspired to manipulate or seize the good mood back. He wasn't so confident about his success rate the first time he did it at the hotel. And the trip is nearly over now anyway. His thoughts turned to a white horse he saw walking down the street of Times Square. It was pulling a carriage ride with an empty red velvet seat. He wanted to ask Melanie if she wanted to ride on the carriage, to set a romantic tone for their evening. However, he did not ask. That felt strange to Lance, that he didn't. Now, they pull up to Melanie's dad's house. They unload the car, she gives him a dry goodbye with no kiss, and the trip is done. The fact that he didn't ask her to occupy that empty red velvet seat with him no longer feels strange to Lance at all. His final thought as he pulls off, fuck it. And that will conclude chapter 2. And that will conclude a total of 5 reading sessions. And I'm going to say this now. When you see session 6, when you see session 6 posted, that will mean the book is available. Here is the cover to Internet Dating. And the back. Now that JRNE crap Well, let's not worry about that. Let's just get straight to it. This is where the book will be available. xlibris.com. It will also be available at amazon.com and barnesandnoble.com. Thank you very much, friends and family and strangers, for watching this or listening to it. I hope you enjoyed my reading sessions, and I hope you will make that next move, and I hope you do enjoy my first book. Thank you very much. I'll holla.